The most adored man in Hollywood, the one with the billion-dollar smile and the perfect soulmate girlfriend, live on Instagram with his new co-star, when his real girlfriend of 4 years walks into frame and drops a single sentence that ends his entire career in under 10 seconds. Today, I'm that girlfriend. And in the next 30 minutes, I'm going to show you the receipts that turned America's golden boy into the most cancelled man on the planet, overnight. You ready for the celebrity breakup that absolutely no one saw coming? Let's burn it all down. My name is Lila Voss, and for 4 years the entire world knew me as the girl who landed Ethan Cross. Ethan Cross. You know the name. The guy who went from playing the charming high school quarterback in that cheesy teen vampire franchise at 19 to becoming the highest paid actor under 35 by 28. Chiseled jaw, ocean blue eyes, that half smirk that made teenage girls, and their moms, lose their minds. Forbes called him America's billion-dollar boyfriend. Tabloids dubbed us Hollywood's golden couple goals. We had the Vanity Fair covers, the matching Met Gala looks, the joint Vogue spread where we fed each other strawberries on a yacht in Capri. Hashtags like hashtag Ethan and Lila Forever trended for weeks every time he posted a black and white photo of my hand in his. But here's what the world never saw: I wasn't just his girlfriend. I was the one who pulled him out of the spiral when the vampire money first hit and he almost OD'd in a Vegas suite at 21. I was the one who sat with him in rehab waiting rooms, who learned every trigger, who flew to whatever country he was shooting in just to make sure he ate something other than Red Bull and ego. I was the one who turned down 3 lead roles because the schedules clashed with his fragile press tours. My own career, steady supporting roles, a couple of indie darlings that got me on critics' radar, took a quiet backseat so his supernova could keep burning brighter. People thought I was living a fairy tale. In reality, I was the unpaid crisis manager, therapist, stylist, sober coach, and, when the cameras weren't rolling, punching bag for a man who could charm a stadium of 50,000 fans but couldn't look me in the eye without his publicist in the room. We met on the set of a rom-com nobody remembers. I was 24, playing the quirky best friend, he was 23 and already the lead. The chemistry read was electric. 3 months later he asked me to move into his newly bought mansion in the Hollywood Hills. By year 2 we were engaged, well, secretly engaged, because his team said a wedding would dilute the fantasy for female fans. The ring stayed in a safe. I told myself it was fine. I told myself a lot of things were fine. Behind those 10-foot privacy hedges, Ethan had 2 completely different personalities. In public, warm, funny, progressive, the guy who tearfully thanked his soulmate Lila every time he won an award. In private, cold, calculating, and increasingly cruel. He'd mock Mike Little movies, tell me my laugh was annoying on Mike, remind me every few months that without him I'd still be auditioning for toothpaste commercials. And the worst part? I started to believe him. I stayed because I remembered the boy who cried in my arms the night his mom overdosed. I stayed because every time I threatened to leave, he'd collapse, promise therapy, book us a healing trip to Tulum, and for 2 weeks he'd be the Ethan the world adored. Then the mask would slip again. By year 4, the cracks were canyon-sized, but the public still saw perfection. We were about to start press for his massive superhero trilogy, the one that locked him in for a billion-dollar franchise. My own film, the first one I was actually producing and starring in, was finally greenlit. For the first time in years, I had something that was mine. That's when I walked into our bedroom on a random Tuesday afternoon and found him in our bed with his 22-year-old co-star from the franchise, the one the studio had been pushing as the fresh new face of Hollywood. Phones were out. They were filming it. And the look he gave me when I froze in the doorway wasn't guilt. It was annoyance. Like I was interrupting his content schedule. That moment changed everything, but not for the reasons you think. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just stood there, phone dangling in my hand, recording the whole thing on instinct because some distant part of my brain knew I'd need proof one day. Ethan rolled his eyes, actually rolled them, and said, "Babe, close the door on your way out. We're kind of in the middle of something." The girl, her name was Skylar Reed, America's new sweetheart according to every magazine cover that month, giggled and buried her face in his neck like this was cute couple banter. I backed out, closed the door softly, and walked downstairs to the kitchen where I poured myself a glass of water with shaking hands. He didn't even follow me. 20 minutes later he strolled in wearing sweatpants, hair perfect, like nothing happened. He kissed my forehead the way he did for paparazzi and said, "Let's not make this a thing, okay? Skylar's team wants to seed some dating rumors before the press tour. It's just marketing." I asked if he'd used a condom. He laughed. Actually laughed. "You're on the pill, aren't you?" As if that was the point. That night he slept in the guest room, to give me space. The next morning there were already blind items on Dumois, Which billionaire franchise star was caught in 4K by his longtime girlfriend? Sources say she's spiraling. Within 48 hours, Skylar's followers jumped by 3 million, and a paparazzi photo of her leaving our gate in Ethan's hoodie went viral with the caption, "New Girl." And that was just the beginning. Over the next 8 weeks he turned cruelty into performance art. He'd bring her to our house when he knew I'd be home from set. They'd swim naked in our pool while I edited dailies in the office upstairs. Once, I came down for coffee and found her wearing my favorite vintage Chanel jacket, the one I wore to my first premiere, while she sat on his lap feeding him strawberries. The same pose from our Vogue shoot. He started rewriting history in interviews. "Lila and I have always had an open thing," he told Variety with that practiced humble chuckle. "We're super evolved." When the reporter asked me about it on a red carpet, I said, "No comment," and the internet branded me bitter, jealous, controlling. My own movie's test screenings were getting sabotaged. Suddenly half the invited press were no-shows. I found out later Ethan's publicist had been calling in favors, "Just sit this one out, Lila's being difficult right now." Investors started getting cold feet. One producer straight up told me, "We love the film, but Ethan's team says there's heat on you. We can't risk the association." He froze my access to our joint accounts, for my protection, while still expecting me to show up smiling at his premieres. I had to borrow money from my mom to make payroll on my indie. And every time I threatened to leave, he'd cry, say he was scared of losing me, promise couples therapy, then ghost the therapist, and leak to Page 6 that I was refusing help. The worst was the night he came home drunk after the superhero rap party. Skylar was on his arm in a dress that cost more than most people's rent. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "You can sleep in the pool house tonight. We need the master for content." Then he handed me a gift bag with lingerie inside, size extra small. I'm a size 8. I sat on the pool house couch until sunrise, listening to them through the open windows. That's when the rage finally burned hotter than the hurt. He thought he could erase me while I was still standing in the same room. He was wrong. It happened on the morning of the first superhero trailer dropped. I woke up in the pool house to my phone exploding. The trailer was everywhere, #1 trending on YouTube, 40 million views in 6 hours. And there, at the 127 mark, was Skylar in the female lead role that had originally been written for me. The studio had quietly recast it 6 weeks earlier while I was distracted by personal issues, according to the trades. Ethan had personally approved the change. I walked into the main house to find him shirtless in the kitchen, doing a live Instagram with her. They were making pancakes in matching aprons that said, "Mr. and Mrs. Cross." The comments were a flood of fire emojis and, "Finally the upgrade we deserve." He looked up, saw me standing there in yesterday's clothes, hair a mess, eyes swollen, and he smirked, the same smirk he saved for paparazzi when he wanted to look cocky, and said into the camera, "Say hi to my ex-roommate, guys. She's still working through some stuff." The live chat went feral, laughing emojis, "Not Lila looking homeless, Skylar won." Something inside me snapped so cleanly I actually heard it. I walked upstairs to our bedroom, his bedroom now, and opened the safe was open. Inside was the engagement ring he'd never let me wear in public, a stack of NDAs I'd signed over the years, and the hard drive I'd watched him back up every compromising video he'd ever taken, for insurance. He was arrogant enough to keep everything in one place because he genuinely believed I would never touch it. I sat on the floor and started copying files. That's when I found the folder labeled L. Over 400 videos and photos spanning our entire relationship. Me drunk crying after my dad's funeral. Me asleep with no makeup after a 20-hour shoot day. Me in the shower when I thought he was in Japan. Me having a panic attack in the car after a stalker showed up at my mom's house. And worst, recordings of me begging him not to leave during fights, telling him I wasn't good enough, apologizing for things that were never my fault. He'd edited some of them into montages with sad music, like his own private humiliation reel. There was even a 45-minute compilation titled Crazy Lila Moments, with a thumbnail of me ugly crying. I sat there for 3 hours watching my lowest moments play on loop while laughter echoed from the kitchen downstairs. And for the first time in 4 years, I didn't feel small. I felt radioactive. When I walked back downstairs, he was still live, now with over 300,000 viewers. Skylar was feeding him a pancake shaped like a heart. I stepped into frame, looked straight into the camera, and said, "Hey, Ethan. Remember when you told Rolling Stone last month that you've never laid a hand on a woman and you're a proud feminist? Want me to show them the footage from Aspen when you threw me into a glass table because I asked you to put your phone down at dinner?" The chat froze. You could hear Skylar's fork clatter. Ethan lunged for my phone. I stepped back and smiled, really smiled, for the first time in months. "Touch me and the drive auto uploads to every major outlet I know," I said, calm as anything. I just spent the morning setting up dead man switches. You have exactly 1 hour to pack whatever you can carry before I burn your entire world down. He called me crazy. He called security. He threatened to sue me for everything I'd never had. I just turned around and walked out the front door with the hard drive in my pocket and 4 years of rage in my chest. The revenge wasn't going to be loud. It was going to be surgical. I didn't go to a hotel. Hotels have cameras, and Ethan still had friends who'd sell me out for a selfie. Instead, I drove straight to the valley, to the tiny one-bedroom I'd secretly kept since 2019. I'd never told him about it. He would have called it hoarding square footage. It still had my old furniture, a ring light from my YouTube days, and most importantly, zero connection to his name. For 48 hours I didn't sleep. I cloned the hard drive 6 times. I built encrypted folders. I wrote timelines. Then I made the 3 phone calls that would decide whether I walked away broken or whether I salted the earth behind me. First call, Mara Klein, investigative reporter at the Los Angeles Times. We'd met years ago when she was still at BuzzFeed. She'd always hated the way Ethan's team fed her colleagues lies about me. She picked up on the second ring. I said only, how would you like the biggest celebrity Me Too story of the decade with receipts? She was at my door in 43 minutes. Second call, Jasmine Park, my lawyer and the only person in Hollywood who scared Ethan's legal team more than they scared her. I told her I wasn't looking for money. I was looking for mutually assured destruction. She laughed the kind of laugh that ends careers and said, give me 24 hours to clear my calendar. Third call, a burner number I'd saved for 2 years. It belonged to Ethan's former assistant, Nico, who'd been fired after Ethan accused him of stealing watches Ethan had actually pawned for coke money. Nico answered with, if this is about the GoFundMe, I'm clean now. I told him I wasn't calling for forgiveness, I was calling for payback. He was silent for 5 full seconds, then whispered, name the time and place. Here's what Ethan never understood, every person he'd humiliated, fired, or threatened had been waiting for the green light. I was just the one stupid enough, or angry enough, to flip the switch. The plan was 4-pronged and timed like a military strike. Phase 1, the leak drop. Mara would publish the exposé on a Friday at 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern, perfectly timed to dominate morning shows. The article would include screenshots, audio clips, and 3 full videos, watermarked and verified by a third-party forensic lab Jasmine hired. Phase 2, the live execution. At the exact same minute the article went live, I would go live on Instagram and TikTok simultaneously from an undisclosed location, holding the engagement ring he'd never let me wear. I would read a 4-minute statement, no tears, no yelling, just cold, clear facts, while the world watched in real time. Phase 3, the dominoes. Nico still had access to the shared iCloud Ethan never bothered to revoke, because he thought Nico was too broke to matter. At 6:12 a.m. Nico would upload 32 minutes of unedited security cam footage from the Aspen Chalet directly to a throwaway YouTube channel titled Ethan Cross Unmasked. The algorithm would do the rest. Phase 4, the kill shot. When Ethan tried to spin it as hacked or deepfake, Jasmine had already served emergency preservation orders on every cloud service he used. The originals would be in court by noon. I rehearsed the live statement until my voice didn't shake. I practiced smiling the way he used to, small, cruel, knowing. I bought a new red dress, the exact shade I'd worn the night he won his first Oscar, because symbolism matters. The night before the drop, I sat on my old couch with the hard drives lined up like bullets. I thought I'd feel scared. Instead, I felt the kind of calm people describe right before battle. Ethan was about to learn that the quiet ones don't always stay quiet. They just wait until the microphone is big enough to be heard around the world. Friday, 5:57 a.m. I hit go live on both platforms at the exact same second Mara's article posted. The red dress looked like fresh blood against the white wall behind me. No music, no filter, no tears. Just the engagement ring spinning slowly on my finger and 1.8 million people flooding in within the first 45 seconds. Good morning, I said, voice perfectly steady. My name is Lila Voss, and for 4 years I helped build the myth of Ethan Cross. Today I'm going to tear it down brick by brick. I held up the ring. He proposed with this in 2022. He never let me wear it in public because, and I quote, single Ethan sells more tickets. The chat was pure chaos, caps lock screaming, crying emojis, people tagging every celebrity they knew. I didn't stop. Trigger warning for abuse, coercion, and non-consensual recording. Then I started playing the clips. First, the Aspen footage. Ethan's hand around my throat against the glass table, shards everywhere, my screen cut off by his palm. You could hear Skylar in the background laughing, saying, do it again, babe, the angle's better. Second, the Crazy Lila compilation he'd made for his private group chat with other A-list guys. My panic attack set to cartoon sound effects. Third, the poolhouse audio from the night he kicked me out, him telling Skylar, she'll crawl back. They always do. By the time I finished the 4-minute statement, Instagram had crashed twice and TikTok was throttling the stream because too many people were sharing it at once. The view count froze at 47 million and just kept climbing. At 6:12 a.m. on the dot, Nico dropped the YouTube bomb. 32 minutes of raw security footage, date-stamped, unedited. Ethan snorting lines off a marble counter while trashing his last 3 co-stars by name. Ethan mocking a director who just attempted suicide. Ethan bragging about paying off a 17 cover girl to keep quiet about an incident in his trailer when she was still underage. The video hit 1 million views in 4 minutes. Twitter broke. Hashtag Ethan crosses over trended worldwide in 6. Disney Plus started scrubbing his face from their homepage banner mid-morning. His superhero franchise issued a statement at 7:03 a.m. saying they were reviewing all options. Translation, they were already lawyering up to dump him. Ethan tried to fight back, of course. He went live from his manager's office at 7:45 a.m., eyes red, voice cracking, claiming his accounts were hacked by a bitter ex who's been unstable for years. He even teared up on cue. For about 9 minutes it looked like the old magic might work. Then someone stitched my live with his side-by-side, and the internet noticed he was wearing the exact same shirt he'd had on in the Aspen footage from 2 years ago. The shirt I'd bleached after he got blood on it. My blood. The tide turned so fast it gave the internet whiplash. By noon his agency dropped him. By 2 p.m. the studio announced Skylar was also stepping away from the franchise for personal reasons. By 4 p.m. the police were at his gate with a search warrant for the original hard drives. Jasmine had made sure they knew exactly where to look. He tried to run. Paparazzi caught him at Van Nuys private airport with 2 duffel bags and a baseball cap pulled low. Someone threw a milkshake. Someone else threw a shoe. The video of him slipping in it and face-planting on the tarmac got 112 million views in 24 hours. And through every second of it, I sat in my Little Valley apartment, eating cold pizza and watching the empire he'd built on my silence burn to the ground in real time. It wasn't pretty. It was perfect. The first 48 hours were pure bedlam. My phone didn't stop vibrating until the battery died and I let it stay dead. Every major outlet wanted the first sit-down. Oprah's people called. Barbara Walters came out of retirement and left a voicemail that actually made me laugh for the first time in months. I didn't answer any of them. I took a shower, ate half a sandwich, and slept for 16 hours straight. When I woke up, the world had already moved on to sentencing. Ethan's superhero trilogy was officially shelved 2 days later, a 9-figure write-off that sent the studio stock into freefall. Reshoots with a new lead were not financially viable. Disney Plus quietly pulled every title he'd ever been in. His cologne was yanked from Sephora shelves. The watch brand that paid him 8 figures a year issued a statement about shared values and donated his entire fee to domestic violence charities, then never mentioned his name again. Skylar's team tried the amnesia route, sudden mental health hiatus, tearful notes app apology about not knowing the full context. The internet wasn't having it. Old tweets resurfaced of her laughing about crazy exes and desperate clingy girls. Her movie with Timothée Chalamet got recast in 24 hours. Last I heard she's doing sponsored yoga posts from Bali with 90% of the comments turned off. Ethan lawyered up with the most expensive crisis team in town, but even they couldn't stop the avalanche. Victims started coming forward, 2 assistants, a makeup artist, a journalist he'd threatened after she asked about rumors. The Aspen glass table incident alone triggered 3 different investigations. When the DA filed charges, assault, unlawful surveillance, possession with intent, his bail was set at $2 million. The mugshot trended for a week. He violated the restraining order I filed by sending flowers to my mom's house with a card that read, "We'll always have Capri." The judge revoked bail. He's been in Twin Towers ever since, awaiting trial that keeps getting pushed because more women keep joining the civil suits. My little indie movie? The one investors had fled? It became the most anticipated film of the following year. A24 picked it up for distribution after the exposé. We premiered at Sundance to a 10-minute standing ovation. Critics called it a battle cry disguised as a love story. I won the grand jury prize. I took my mom as my date and wore the red dress. The money started rolling in faster than I could count it. Offers, endorsements, speaking gigs. I donated the first $1 million to RAIN and started a grant fund for female filmmakers who've survived abuse in the industry. Applications opened the same day Ethan's trial date was finally set. I bought the mansion in the hills from the bank after it went into foreclosure. Kept the pool, gutted everything else. Turned the master bedroom into a screening room. Some nights I sit in there with the lights off and play my movie on loop just to remind myself the house is mine now. Ethan's fan accounts turned into hate pages overnight. Someone made a deepfake of him crying in Prison Orange and set it to Taylor Swift. It has 300 million views. Skylar's last Instagram post is a black square with the caption, "Learning and Growing." It has 4.7 million laughing emojis. And me? I'm not America's victim anymore. I'm the woman who refused to disappear. Sometimes I walk past the safe in the new screening room, the one I had bolted to the floor, where the original hard drives still sit. I don't need to open it. The whole world already saw what was inside. People keep asking me if it was worth it. They want to know if watching a man's life implode in 4K, hearing the glass shatter on a billion-dollar empire, feeling the internet itself roar on my side, if all of that healed the nights I cried in a pool house, or the mornings I stared at bruises shaped like fingerprints, or the years I spent shrinking myself so his shadow could stay bright. The honest answer is no. Revenge didn't heal me. It just proved I was finally strong enough to stop letting him hurt me. There's a moment I still think about, long after the headlines died down. It was 3 months after the drop, right after I won the Sundance Prize. I was walking out of a restaurant in Los Feliz and a girl, maybe 19, stopped me on the sidewalk. She was shaking, clutching her phone like it was a lifeline. She said, "I left my boyfriend last night. He told me no one would ever believe me because he's, like, kind of famous on TikTok. Then I saw what you did, and I realized they don't have to believe me. I just have to leave." She hugged me so hard my ribs hurt. Then she walked away and I stood there crying in the middle of the street like an idiot. That's when I understood, the fire I lit didn't just burn Ethan's world down. It lit a path for every woman still trapped in the dark, thinking her story is too small, her abuser too powerful, her voice too shaky to matter. I used to think silence was survival. Turns out silence is just death by 1,000 swallowed screams. So if you're watching this and you're still wearing long sleeves in summer, or checking his location 20 times a day, or rehearsing how you'll explain the unexplained, listen to me. You do not need permission to speak. You do not need perfect evidence. You do not need to wait until you're no longer afraid. You only need to decide that your life is worth more than his comfort. I didn't expose Ethan Cross to destroy him. I exposed him to free myself, and every woman coming after me. And if that makes me the villain in his story? Good. I'd rather be the monster who burns the village down than the quiet girl who dies inside it. So here's the only moral that matters. When they tell you to be small, be a wildfire instead. Thank you for listening to my story. Now go tell yours. Soft pause. If this helped, even a little, hit that subscribe button. We're just getting started.